All right, guys, we're going to get started on Thursday. The value of 6. So we're going to find where 6 is in our first number, and it's all the way over here. So it's in the 100,000s place value, and it is a 6. So it is worth 600,000. Remember to put your comma in there. The 6 over here is located right here in the tens place value, so it is worth 60. I'm going to come down here, and now we're going to do a multiplication problem. 8 times 3 is 24, so I put my 4 down here. I carry my 2. 8 times 9 is 72. Add your 2 is 74. Carry my 7. 8 times 2 is 16. Add your 7, and you're going to get 23. So remember, when we do that, we're going to put our 2 down and then our 3. You put your comma in between your 2 and your 3, between your thousands and your hundreds place value. All right, so let's come over here in the upper right-hand corner, and we're going to take a fraction and we're going to multiply it by a whole number. We talked about last week, this is kind of a 5th grade skill, multiplying fractions, and some of you weren't real familiar with what you do with a whole number, how you turn it into a fraction. It's very simple. You just put it over 1. And all of a sudden you have a fraction. So now you're just going to multiply your numerators. 1 times 4 gives us 4. 6 times 1 gives us 6. And if you don't know how to reduce fractions, you just find a number that goes into both your numerator and your denominator. For instance, I know that 6 and 4 are both even numbers. That means I can divide them both by 2. So 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. So my final answer when I'm reducing or finding the simplest form of my fraction would be 2/3. So our last problem for Thursday is finding the volume of our cube here. And so it says if this little thing is 1 cubic unit, find the volume. So we talked last week about we could add up all these little things, count them all, and it's a pretty small cube, so we could do that. Or we could actually find the volume formula, which volume equals length times width times height. So I see that I have 2 cubes going this way, 2 cubes going back, and 2 cubes going up. So all my dimensions are 2. So if I'm going to use my formula, which I want you guys to start getting in the habit of doing, would be 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And it says that I would label it as cubic units. So I could write cubic units, or I could write units. This word right here means cubed. You might be thinking, what in the world is she talking about? But that just means I have 3 units of measurements. So I have length and width and height. All right, guys, so we are on our last bell ringer of the week for math. And this problem says 2 friends share 17 cookies. How many cookies will each friend have? Well, this is a basic division problem. So I know, because it says 17 cookies and there are only 2 friends, that I have to split these cookies up evenly. And I know that I have 8 times 2 would give me 16, and 9 times 2 would give me 18, but I have this funny number of 17 right here in the middle. So it's not going to be an 8, and it's not going to be 9 cookies. It would have to be somewhere in between that. So the number in between 8 and 9 would be 8.5. So some of you might have thought about it that way. Others of you might have thought about it like we did last week's problem. 17 divided by 2, 2 goes into 17, and then you start thinking about it this way. 8 times 2 is 16. Then you have 1 left. And we've talked about how in 5th grade we don't use remainders. So that's when you use this 1 and it becomes your numerator, and you stick it over the number that you divided it by, which is 2. So you get your 8.5. So we got the same answer, just different ways. That's why I love math. All right, over here we have an adding decimals problem. So 0.48 plus 0.35. So 8 plus 5 is 13. I have 4 and 1, which makes 5, plus 3 is 8. Bring down my decimal. So we have 83 hundredths. So now I'm going to compare using greater than or less than. Remember how we talked about using our fingers to show that L for less than. So I see 148 times 10, 148 times 2. I'm going to look for the thing that's different. Both of these say 148, so now I'm only going to look at the number that we're multiplying them by, and this one is greater. So this is greater than this. All right, last but not least, use 4 terms to describe this shape. Well, if I'm looking at it, the first thing that comes to mind is it is a rectangle. Several of you last week were using pretty fancy words. I was impressed. So you could also maybe think of this as a quadrilateral. Quadrilateral, this word quad just means 4. It has 4 sides. You could also think of this as a polygon. Poly means many-sided figure because it has 4 sides. That's many sides. And then you could also think of this as a parallelogram. I know that was mentioned last week. We'll talk about how to label shapes in the spring. Bye, guys.